But in preparing to introduce our penultimate speaker, Erin Riley, I can let you know that she is a photographer who was part of the 2008-2009 CFAP, traveled to the high Arctic for Operation Nunavut. From Yellowknife to Fort Eureka on Ellesmere Island, she spent a week at the fort observing preparations for a week-long patrol over the southern part of the island. While there, Erin became intrigued with the relationship between, on the one hand, the Canadian military, and on the other, the Canadian Rangers, and how these two distinct cultures work together. Her themes of space and place have set out to explore the concept of sovereignty, and her lens-based work has most recently been published in the journal Topia, which is the Canadian Journal of Cultural Studies. Please welcome Erin Riley.
So just to give you a little bit of background, I'm trained as a photojournalist and a documentary photographer, and that's how I make my living. So, and then I've been working lately about trying to bring photojournalism and documentary photography and combine that with some strategies from conceptual art practices. And then, so this is, you can go. This is what sort of I tried to do up in Eureka. And what happened, I didn't plan to go to Eureka, so I just sort of landed with this opportunity to go to the Arctic. It came up very quickly, and I took it. And so I had no plan, no preparation, and I didn't know what to expect. And up in the Arctic, we can just go. We spent a lot of time in planes. The Twin Otter there's nothing up there. It's really big and nothing. And as a photographer, I was freaking out because there's like, oh my God, there's nothing to shoot. And you never get out of a plane. And this is like what you do all day. So then you start thinking about issues of sovereignty, which is maybe not so much, I mean, to do a project on Canadian military and not to show them, but this is what they have to deal with. And we as Canadians, like, you know, this is our Arctic, and I mean, who owns it, and how are we going to protect it, and, you know, anyway, so I just came up with this series of landscapes. Oh, and there you can see these tiny little dots. That is that's the forces on patrol. So you can see it's all about the scale of what has to be done up there, and those frozen blocks of ice or icebergs. So they're on a fjord. So that's our military at home. I think if I had to say, I would think this is the biggest issue facing the Canadian forces at home is what they're going to do up in the north. So this is what they do. And there you get another view of them. They go out in I don't know, teams of 8, and they stay out there. They cover about 1,000 kilometers on their snowmobiles, and that's it. They just ride around. And this is closer to the base. This is the road that connects Fort Eureka, which is a permanent military base, and this is the road that connects to the weather station. So at the same time, I just noticed when I was there a lot of things that sort of didn't really fit together. You know, there's this idea of the actual land. There's a lot of working off maps. So there's the idea of representation, and then you're a photographer freaking out because there's nothing to photograph. And also, I'd had restrictions on me. Like, I had a PR person tailing me all the time, and I was asked not to photograph certain things, like really banal things, like I wasn't allowed to photograph the dump because you don't want to know what they do with the garbage up there. And I couldn't go anywhere unescorted without a gun because they were like, oh, but you might get eaten by a polar bear. I'm like, meh. But there was nowhere to go anyway. So I came up with, when I came back, I had photographs, and I just started editing them into pairs. So this idea of sovereignty, again, is about, I think it's, you know, it's part of it I was thinking about is how you mark the land, and this is where we peed. That's, yeah, yeah. And then also what was really fascinating about being up there is that this yearly operation is partnered with the Canadian Rangers, who it's its own, I don't know, division or platoon, I'm not sure of the military word, but they have anywhere north of 60, there's these Canadian Ranger, they're not really battalions, but, and they're made up of local and indigenous populations, so they will recruit members of the Canadian Rangers from all across the north to participate in Operation Nunavut, and they really rely on them because they can read the land. You know, they do get outfitted, but the smart ones choose to bring their own gear that they know will keep them warm, and they're in charge of building the comatics, and we can just keep going. And again, there's some weird, like, strange divisions of labor, because, you know, it's like the guys in green do all the sort of mental work, and the Inuit are doing all the physical labor. We can go, and then there's this sort of division, like, they're dressed in red, the regular forces guys are in their green, and there's a lot of downtime up there too, so this is just, we were up there, it was 24-hour sunlight, so it was in the spring. So we can go to and then just sort of different, I don't know, up there, everything you notice is different. So this is, you know, found inside of one of the tents, and this is outside, so just different ways of eating. And that's it.